Hey guys, welcome back to Dwell Big. Today I want to show you a really awesome and cheap hack for trimming and casing a builder grade window like this. Now you're going to find a variety of styles. Sometimes it's just what's called a drywall return all the way around the window. On this one they at least luckily put in a wood windowsill for us, and they did put a little bit of casing underneath, turned upside down just to give it a little bit of styling. But the rest of it is just a drywall return with drywall insides. And what's going to make this kind of a cheap hack is how we're going to handle the actual inside pieces of this window around. Now traditionally for trimming and casing, you would actually put wood around here. Like if you really wanted to do this the right way, you would cut all of these corner beads out for the drywall, cut all the drywall out of the inside and replace that with wood, and then trim the outside of the window. But I don't care that this is wood for a window application, certainly, and I just don't see the justification of the mess, time, and hassle for ripping all of that out and doing that way. Not only that, but the extra cost. So what's going to make this a little bit of a poor man's window trimming and casing is going to be simply making some modifications to this windowsill that's already here, and if you don't have one, it's still pretty simple to add one in and still accomplish this the same way. We're going to pull this bottom piece off, and then we're just going to trim around this, and then I'm going to tape everything off, window and around it, and basically spray all of the trim in these inside pieces, what would traditionally be casing that are drywall right now, all in a white, all as one piece. And we're still going to have the little bit of reveal, and the end product, and I've already done this in our office and a few other places, our end product is going to be exactly the same from any visual distance and even up close as it would be if you did this the right way and ripped all the drywall off as I previously mentioned. And look and feel, the feel especially even up close, I mean you're not really going to be able to tell the difference unless you have like an extremely textured drywall. Then you might want to take some time to either scrape that down or possibly still do it the right way. But short of having any kind of extreme texturing on your drywall, anything that's just kind of a standard flat rolled drywall, this is going to work really, really, really well for. So let's get into it. All right, so the first real step to this is I'm going to basically mark off and cut off the little wings of this. I'm actually probably going to pull this bottom trim piece first. It's just going to be held in, it might be glued and have a little bit of caulking around it. But I'm just going to basically pull this off, and I'm going to mark these wings, I'm calling them on both sides, come out flush from the wall, and take an oscillating tool or some kind of cutoff tool and just make a nice, clean, square cut on this. It's kind of important. Take your time. There's not much to cut through here if yours is set up like this, so it's not that hard, just to take a little bit of extra time and make sure that's nice and flush, because just like the edge is showing right now, that's what's going to be showing eventually. And once that's cut, then we'll want to kind of sand that and clean that up just a little bit, and then do that to the other side. And once that bottom piece is pulled off, then we'll be ready to cut and throw our trim around. so I got the finished nailer rigged up. I'm gonna be shooting the 16 gauge 2-inch. Certainly don't have to shoot 2-inch, but his is pretty thick trim, and I just personally like to go with the longer size. So what you're going to want to do is basically eyeball that little bit of overhang. So this isn't going to line up perfectly with this. If it does, if you add it in for a reveal, it's going to put the other side too far off. So you just want to eyeball and get it as close as you can. You could really take a close measurement if you wanted, but when you're talking about like kind of an 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch, it's hard to kind of measure that and get that very exact. So I'm just going to kind of hold it the best I can and just visually make sure I've got about the same exact amount of reveal on both sides. And then I'm going to shoot this side first. And I'm going to go over, make sure we're still sitting good, nothing moved. I'm going to shoot this side. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do now is get an exact measurement of what I just cut this bottom piece to, and I'm going to basically put that one up top. And again, once we get those two, then I can precisely measure and get the sides. There won't be any harm in measuring this one to be the same, put it up there. It's just a way I found is a little quicker and easier to do it. You're certainly free to do it, you know, however you please, and feel free to drop it below if you've got a quicker, faster, better way to do it. All right, so basically this is the next piece cut for the top. Pretty much the same thing. The only difference is since you had the plate down here, you also really need to remember that you want to keep that reveal consistent all the way around. So not only do the sides need to have a reveal, the bottom doesn't, but you want to keep that same reveal on the sides. So you kind of just need to eyeball and set about an 1/8 of an inch. You can go through and measure and make it a lot more precise, kind of put a guideline across there, but I've gotten pretty decent about eyeballing it, and you'll find out that it's not one of those things that's going to really matter in the long run. One thing you can do is put a level across the top of this and make sure your piece is sitting pretty level. Again, something I'm going to eyeball, but just some tips in case you're not as used to doing this. So again, same nailer, just in a more difficult position up here to get situated. And you really basically want to set the side nearest you, and again, remember that you're trying to get Alright, so before I go too far with that, I'm going to throw a level on it and just check a couple things. Make sure my reveal is pretty nice and consistent, about an 1/8 of an inch, give or take. With the drywall edging, it's not necessarily perfect, so it's not going to be a consistent 1/8 of an inch all the way across anyway, but as long as it's, you know, close enough and consistent, and you mainly want to make sure that this top piece is running level. Once I figure that out, or once I verify that, I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple more nails in this, and then I'm going to be able to get these outside to outside measurements on each and kind of get a precise piece to lay right in there. So it's a little easier, a little less kind of math and stuff to figure out. Alright guys, so that is all of the actual trim installed and secured. Everything went pretty smoothly. I've got my reveal pretty consistently, or as consistent as it needs to be all the way around. Everything's looking pretty good. Now moves on to the tedious work, which is getting all the nail holes filled, getting some caulking put, and some of the different corners, in the reveal edge, some of the outside edges. There's obviously some that aren't going to be visible that you don't need to worry about, but to do that, I normally use the Alex, or the spackling that just is the stuff that's pink and just turns white when it's ready, but this time I'm going to be trying this Alex Plus spackling. Not sure if it's going to work any better or not, but I generally try to avoid any kind of like an actual wood filler and just like use spackling for holes, or if you've got like a big kind of void or gap, you know, or an area you need to level off, it's kind of acceptable to use there too. For the caulking of the various places, I'm going to be using this Alex Flex. It says this stuff specifically for like molding, crown molding, things like that. It's supposed to be crack proof and have maximum flexibility and adhesion. And I found that this stuff's pretty smooth to work with. I hate working with pretty much all caulkings across the board. I just don't have enough patience for it. This stuff makes it a little bit easier, and it's going to hold up well in the long run. So I'm going to take some time, and however much time you take on this step determines how good your finished product's going to look. You know, it doesn't matter how well you paint. If you don't get these nail holes filled well and everything caulked nice and clean, it's going to show through in your final product no matter what. You can't just paint over the stuff and hope for the best. So without further ado, let's hop into that. All right, guys, so this is what this spackling stuff looks like, and I literally just take my finger, dab some in there, wipe the excess off, and you know, you can do this a couple of rounds. I like this stuff because for the most part, when it dries, it does not leave a void like some other things do. And see, this one right there is a nail I'm gonna have to punch in. I got a few of those laying around. The different ones I'm gonna certainly have to punch in. So I'm gonna go around, keep doing that. Just get those wiped in good. Again, you might have to go around and do a second iteration of this, because they could sink in a little bit still. Depends on how perfect you want to get it. But again, however much time you spend on this is really what's going to ultimately determine your final finished product. Alright, so I didn't get to film quite as much of the filling of the nail holes and caulking and the painting process as I had wanted to, but just keep in mind a lot of that's going to potentially vary for you. So, you know, I opted to mask everything off really well and spray all of this as kind of one piece. You can certainly brush this if you wanted to. You can use like a foam roller and get kind of a little bit of a spray look to it in the end, but in my opinion, I got one little run, but otherwise it turned out pretty darn nice, and really kind of accomplishes that look of being a genuine cased and trimmed window, as if you had done it, you know, the right way, but with very minimal cost and overall effort put into this. So if you have, you know, builder grade windows around your house, you know, maybe it's got this sill bottom, maybe not. You can really kind of take and apply a lot of these principles to your windows and have a cheap and easy alternative to all the work to rip out the drywall and all the extra cost associated with genuinely casing and trimming this window out. As always, guys, dwell big wherever you are. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down below. Please consider subscribing. This is part of our current kitchen update process, and I'm going to kind of have a series on that. So there'll be plenty more great content to come.